this next section and is really is going to be a little bit more content around the vision of eXp, and so I called this "Be Prepared for Anything," and it really comes down to this idea that back in 2009, we were really sort of at the bottom of the housing market. It was the worst housing market. We were debating things like, when do we get our offices back? At the time, an agent actually asked me, when do we get our offices back? And my comment then was, we're not getting our offices back. We don't know how long it's going to be this bad. Not dissimilar to some of the conversations that are probably taking place right now. And I said we needed to build a defensible real estate brokerage that wasn't dependent on bricks and mortar. And as many of you know, the single biggest expense of running a real estate brokerage is in 99% of the cases, unless you're operating like eXp, and we're pretty rare in terms of the way we operate, but the biggest single expense is the physical bricks and mortar expenses that exist for each of these offices, followed by redundant staffing costs. And of course, redundant staffing costs, you think about the various folks that are there. You've got the broker owner, you've got the receptionist, you've got the bookkeeper, you've got potentially the sales manager, you've got the person who comes in and fixes the copiers, and you've got all of this extra sort of overhead that literally is duplicated office by office, street by street, in a lot of countries around the world. I just got back from Australia, obviously spending a little time with Stephen Lee and some of the folks that are down there. I noticed that Nada mentioned that she's watching in Australia at 5:30 in the morning. So great to have you on board here as well. But in Australia, what was interesting is because they don't have the MLS system like we do in the U.S. and Canada, that there was literally almost, and I'm being a little extreme, but not too much. There's almost as many real estate offices as there were coffee shops, and each one of them had, again, generally the same group of people sort of in those offices. I think that's the same thing in the UK and a lot of places internationally. And so the single biggest cost to running a real estate brokerage is the physical space, but then the redundant staffing costs, and so that for us was, how do we sort of solve for not having the bricks and mortar component? So we need to come up with a compelling business model for agents and that would be willing to untether from their physical offices. We also felt that it wouldn't be fair to our agents if we, as a leadership team, of course, I was still very much an active agent even in 2009, but if we as an organization didn't also adopt being fully virtual ourselves. And so we really went all in with this whole sort of how do we operate in a remote, and how do we then also solve the challenge of building community and collaboration if we didn't have physical offices. And as we know, during the word cloud exercise a little bit earlier, the number one term that came up organically, what do you like most about eXp, was collaboration. And it's pretty special when you can take something when people believe that the best place to collaborate is a physical office, to find out that an organization such as ours actually can collaborate even better than where they were potentially prior to being in the virtual campus, even pre-COVID. So, we fast forward a little bit to today, and now of course we have the pandemic. We've got the coronavirus. It's kind of overwhelmed us in some respects, and yet at the same time, if you kind of go through, how has it impacted us? Well, at eXp, we've added I think it's over 3,600 agents since the beginning of the year. Now, think about that. 3,600 agents. We're over 29,000 agents. We ended the year at 28,400 or 25,000 and change. We're now 29,000 agents and brokers. So huge uptick in our agent count. Our volume obviously has been impacted a bit, but not as much as one would expect, because our agents and brokers weren't forced to try to figure out how to start their business all over again without going to the office that they were so used to working in. So we were less impacted in terms of sales volume. And we expanded even last year to 2 additional countries. We're now operating in multiple countries, and we're in this quote unquote pandemic. We're actually accelerating international expansion. We're not slowing down. We're actually speeding up. Where most people are still trying to figure out, what do we do next? Do we prepare to go to the office? Do we prepare to stay home for a while longer? Do we open up some offices? Do we not open up offices? We don't even have to deal with any of the questions that most companies have to deal with. And then you look at Virbela, and you heard about from Craig and from Alex and from Gabe and others on the Virbela side of the house. I mean, we've been expanding like crazy because we've got basically a who's who of companies and workforces actually beating a path to our door, trying to figure out how they build a sense of place, a sense of community, someplace where they can actually sort of work together and actually make things happen. And really, this comes down to this whole concept. You've heard it repeated over and over again, and it's really a phrase that was coined organizationally by 4 individuals, Gene Frederick, Rob Flick, Scott Lewis, and Brent Gove. They actually created a group on Facebook about a month and a half ago to actually talk about the fact that we were built for this. And so I wanted to invite one of those 4 people. I wanted to invite Brent Gove up, and I also wanted to bring up a couple 3 guests as well to come up on stage as well. So Brent, I know that we chatted over earlier over the weekend about having a few folks talk about the impact that eXp has made in their lives. But Brent, I think Tina Call, Jae Kinder, and Rosie Rodriguez. So I know we're having slight technical issues with audio today. I know we've already got the patch already sort of in the path, because this is the first event we held in this auditorium. So we'll get that solved. But hopefully everybody's audio works, and hopefully everybody can hear. But hey, Brent. Hey, Jay. Hey, Tina. Hey, Rosie.
How you doing, Glenn?
Awesome.
We are here, man. We're excited to be here. Thank you for having us up.
Yeah. So Brent, real quick, there's this Facebook group, and it's been blowing up, called We Are Built for This. So those of you who haven't joined the Facebook page or joined that community, definitely check it out. But what was happening 4, 5, 6 weeks ago when you guys kind of came up with this idea, and then how do the agents that you're bringing up here today represent the types of people that you've been interviewing?
Oh man, great question, Glenn. And a shout out to Scott Lewis. It was really his brainchild. We were all hanging out on a Friday night, the 4 of us talking, and Scott's like, we need to do this, and we just did it. The principle of action. And by the way, if the other speakers, if you're not talking, you can mute your mics. We'll probably get better quality. But it was really Scott Lewis's brainchild about, we were built for a time like this. It's a safe haven, a safe harbor. And the whole model is just, we are prepared to weather this hurricane. It's a hurricane. This pandemic is a Category 5 hurricane for the economy, but we are prepared to weather that storm, I think, better than any company out there, which is why we're growing like crazy.
Awesome. So let's maybe we just go around the horn, and maybe if you don't mind just asking a couple, I'm sure, totally softball questions to the group that you have here. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So we're actually prepared. We've talked, and so I'm going to start with Tina Call from Raleigh, North Carolina. She's amazing. I've asked each one of them to give like 30 seconds to a minute. I want them to brag a little bit about who they are, so you can see what kind of agents are attracted to eXp. And I had about 800 others just like this to choose from. But Tina, welcome, and brag about yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are before you even came to eXp.
Oh, I love it. Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Glenn, for having me up here. So I've been an agent for 20 years. I started the business at 23, been through all the different market cycles. And I think, for me, I always look at the trajectory of an agent. And so I went from an individual to hiring an assistant. I even moved from a different market in Michigan 10 years ago to Raleigh, North Carolina, and started over. So as I built my business, I got up to 130 transactions, and the wheels fell off. And so I needed a different model to grow and gain leverage. So I started to build a team. As I was building the team, I realized I was building a mini brokerage. I was going to go independent because, obviously wanting to cut costs here and there and everywhere, looking for that secret leverage platform. And thank God my sponsor, a good friend of mine, said, you got to look at eXp. And at first I wasn't open, but once I did see it, I realized that what I was searching for was exactly this, just a platform that could allow me to grow business, allow me to give agents everything they want in a career and in a business without them having to go through the pain that I went through, and to be able to partner with them and grow it has been awesome. So our business went from 68 million at our other company to 105 million in 1 year at eXp.
Wow.
I brought 14 agents on, and we've grown to 175 agents in 5 or 6 states. So I love it, and I'm not going anywhere.
Well, we're going to get into some of the differences as to what is this so attractive to agents. But before we do that, I want to hear from Rosie and Jay. Rosie, you're next. Tell us a little about who you are. I know you're from Southern California, opposite of Tina here, East Coast, West Coast. But Rosie, brag about yourself. I want to hear a little bit about your background real quick.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so incredibly excited. I'll tell you that I started in the business in 1996. I started in the mortgage side, grew that to personally closing over 300 transactions a year. Then I decided to grow an office. I got bored. I looked around and I saw that there's another company, well-known company, Keller, that came in and they had so many amazing tools and training and support that I jumped on that wagon and grew that to about a 200-person office. And then I jumped off that wagon in 2012. I was looking for maybe a different platform or a different way of doing business. I was lucky enough to find eXp through my sponsor, Rick Jiha, in 2018. And I was so blown away by the caliber of people that had started joining this company. And I tell people I don't find that I'm that incredibly intelligent person. I just think what makes me smart is that I follow smart people. And in that journey, we've grown in a little over 2 years to over 1,100 agents across the country, amazing agents. And the most exciting thing about this is the collaboration all day long. The fact that I get to work with the kind of caliber of individual, the energy, the passion, the enthusiasm, it's different. And I'm so grateful for it.
Love it, Rosie. You and Tina are such a gift to this company. We love you guys. And then I'm moving on to Jae Kinder. Jay, give us a quick background on who you are. Not everybody knows you, most everybody, but let us have it.
What's up, Brent? And thank you, Glenn and Brent, for having me up here. So Jae Kinder, Lawton, Oklahoma, little town of Lawton, Oklahoma, most people don't know about. Been in real estate 23 years now. Got in when I was 19. Transferred from mowing yards into selling real estate. Tried to figure it out for a number of years. Ultimately, paid enough money going around the country to every conference, paying every person in the industry you could pay, and learned how to sell real estate. Ultimately, became number 2 in the world for Coldwell Banker for a number of years before I was looking at purchasing my dad's Coldwell Banker franchise. And we started doing the math, and had a mentor that always used to tell me, do the math, let's do the math. And as I did the math, it just didn't make sense. And the margins just weren't there to be paying the kind of money that we were paying out. And so ultimately, I had to let my dad know that his exit strategy was not going to be me, and went independent. And I had an independent brokerage for a number of years. I think my best year I sold 531 homes, and started a coaching and training company with my good buddy Michael Reese. And I did that in 2006. We rode through the 07-08 downturn with everything you could have in real estate, and weathered that storm just barely. I always tell people I had to cancel my Netflix. It was $7.99. It was such a rough time. And ultimately built the training company up to about $8 million a year, started a new brokerage in Dallas, Texas as well, and moved all that over here to eXp and got in alignment with growing this great company 2.5 years ago. So it's been amazing.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Love it. So you all are obviously superstars, dynamos, and yet you know, partnered with eXp, with Glenn, on this beautiful model, you know. And so why eXp is safe harbor? Why, I know you mentioned it, you alluded to it, but let's get granular a little bit. Like Tina, you had mentioned you saved $12,000 on your CRM. Not everyone knows what one of those are and some of the benefits, but let's get a little granular real quick, just real fast.
Yeah, so I mean, just the two big costs. You know, we were paying $1,000 a month for our CRM at our last brokerage, so we cut that out immediately. And you know, for the $85 a month, we have KV Core, which is awesome. So there's a $12,000 savings. And like Jay said, you know, I'm a student of my craft. I've been coaching with different coaching companies for 12 years. You know, paying in excess of $150,000, $160,000 for coaching. And now what I need people like Jay and people like Brent and Rosie. I can literally pick up the phone and say, hey, Jay, how do you do this? How do you do that? I don't need coaches anymore because I've got financial alignment with all these partners that are thinking about my success when they wake up out of bed every morning, right? So where do you have a company where you can just pick up the phone and these people care about your growth because A, they're shareholders in the company. So when somebody comes to eXp, I'm cheering for them. And B, I've got a bazillion coaches now that have been through enough failures that I can learn from. So right there's 25 grand. But there's even more if I break it down, but those are the two right off the jump.
That was amazing. You just threw it out there, just slid right off your tongue. Financial alignment. That is huge because we would all leave Remax, Keller, Coldwell Banker, Century 21, all these big franchises and go meet at these Craig Proctor, Howard, from Star Power and Mike Ferry, and we'd help each other and we'd go back to our prospective offices and just go do our thing and no financial alignment. That's a big one. Jay, Rosie, let's go to Rosie next. Rosie, give us one or two granular things of why eXp, why now?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that stands out. When I joined eXp, I had my overhead was literally $85,000 a month. And talking to one of my business partners, David Golden, he says, Rosie, that's crazy. We really have to get around this eXp virtual model. And, I do have other businesses. I still have a little bit of brick and mortar, so I still carry an overhead, but it's nothing like it was. And I thank God that under this pandemic, I, was able to not just jump on board with this real estate company that really emphasizes the eXp the virtual platform, but it's a different way of doing business. It's very forward thinking. During this pandemic, I've been looking at all of my systems and really looking at how to leverage, because there is a time frame that Glenn, that I was standing at the grocery store with a cart full of groceries and had to walk away because I could not pay my groceries that day, and that was in 2008, 2009 during that pandemic, during that episode, and it was awful. It was actually kind of comical as well, because I was thinking, I've got 10,000 square feet in my real estate office, but I'm at the grocery store, and I'm like freaking out about how this is going to get paid. So I am, if I can say one thing about what is so important and just kind of granular speaking, it's how much peace of mind I have now in my life, because I know that I can run my business from my home. I can work with my team virtually. I can feed my kids. I can eliminate the stress in the relationships in my life. It's just so amazing. It's such a blessing. So I don't know if that helps.
Rosie, that's great. I mean, wow, 10,000 square foot commercial space overhead, and you're at the grocery store and can't buy groceries for your children. That pretty much says it all as to why this is the greatest real estate brokerage on earth. I'm so excited. I'm going to go to Jay next. Thank you, Rosie. That was great. Jay, I've heard you say you had 40 or 50 employees on the payroll, this massive nut every 2 weeks. And I've heard you say how super grateful you are not to have that responsibility or pressure. Can you share a little bit about why eXp, why now, what's so great about this brokerage?
Absolutely, man. I can't tell you how blessed I am to be at this now, and especially at the time that we're going through now. This has just been an amazing blessing to not be in that position with 40 employees. So I remember I called Mike about a couple months ago, right when things started to hit the kind of get not normal, and I told him, I said, you know how happy I am we're at eXp right now, and we both took a big laugh and a big sigh of relief of just being here. And so yeah, I think Tina and Rosie just said, they said it perfectly. And to me, the way that I have always found success is by, I'm not the smartest kid in class. I just always sit next to them. So I'm always trying to find that person that's, where I'm trying to get to. And that's where I try to go learn. And this platform allows you to learn from the best of the best. Tomorrow we got 75 breakout sessions over the next 2 days. I used to fly around the country and spend literally, like Tina was saying, hundreds of thousands of dollars to go just to be in those rooms, because that's what you had to do that. And now you don't. And I've got my overhanging on my wall here in my office. I have all my banners or all my whatever you call the thing you hang over your tags to get in all these events, right? Like for years and years, that's all I've done is go learn and grow. And so this is the best place that you could possibly have a real estate career if you truly want to grow a successful business. The number of top producing agents in this company that are all in financial alignment to give back to the other agents in this company is phenomenal. It's just something I've never seen anything like it, and it's been amazing.
Love it, Jay. Love it. Beautifully said. So as we wrap this up, real quick, each of you, where do you see eXp brokerage going worldwide? I'm talking numbers. Our goal is to open 40 countries in the next 10 years. Where do you guys see it? I'll go reverse and go with Jay since I've been making him wait. Jay, what 10 years from now, we're going to open, even if we only open 25 or 30 countries, where do you see the agent count for eXp because of the collaboration, the financial alignment, the collaboration? Where do you see our company?
Yeah, at least 1 million agents. I don't understand. And if you do the math, you truly do the math, and you look at the opportunity, and you truly are a professional in this industry, how you could not make the decision to join eXp. Wow. It just doesn't make sense. So that's my number. I like 1 million.
I love it. Rosie?
I'll tell you that the thing that comes to mind, Brent, is that I'm standing next to Jay, to Tina, to you, to Glenn Sanford. I'm standing on a stage with the biggest leaders in the industry of the future. I know when I was sharing this that I said, I'm going to be on stage with Glenn Sanford. You guys don't understand. Glenn Sanford is the leader of the biggest real estate company that's ever been created. And I get to be on stage with him, and I get to share my story with all of you, and I get to inspire people to jump on this amazing opportunity. So I think one of the gifts I have is being able to kind of be a forward thinker and see opportunities before they happen. I'll tell you that we're with the largest real estate company worldwide, hands down, and I'm just blessed to be a part of it.
Love it, love it. Tina?
I have to tell a real quick story. My son said, Mom, when you joined eXp, he said, I said, finally you adults caught up, because I've had global connection through my gaming with kids all around the world. And so think about our kids, right? They're used to this platform, and now we're just catching up. So I think agents are realizing they're the real MVPs of every company, and I think they're all coming. I'd love to see it over 1 million. I think it's going to happen. I think the energy is contagious. My last brokerage gained 4 agents last year, the entire brokerage, 4. They're a national company. And when I joined, we were 16,000 agents, I think. Now we're almost 30,000. So yeah, I think it's going to be, like Jay said, over 1 million agents. How can they not see it?
I love it. I love it. Well, we got to wrap this up. I just want to say this. I do a little watch party where I am. We're all 6 feet apart, and we're super safe. And there's only 4 of us, so don't worry. I don't have 400 people here with me. But I will say this. I was talking to Gogo right before I got on here, and I'll tell you why this business is going to boom. She was nearly so excited and grateful, and talking about how the rev share pays her payment and her car payments now. And Chris Okamura in the room, last month's rev share pays all his bills for the summer. And to have that peace of mind, I'm not going to go beyond that, but I could tell you stories that are 100 times more crazy than that. It is so awesome to own this company, a piece of this company, because we're shareholders with Glenn, that rising tide rising all ships. and then to watch people sail off into the sunset. So excited. Jae Kinder has, I think, over 3,000 agents and broker associates, probably in over 40 states, hundreds of cities. Talk about an expansion model. And I just want to say thank you, Glenn Sanford. We are behind you. We are with you. We're going to rip the cover off the ball, baby, because the United States, a lot of people who came here were pioneers, and really every country for that matter. But we are pioneering the world of real estate with technology. We are the Trailblazers, and we are following you, Glenn Sanford. We love you. We appreciate you. Thanks for having us on stage.
Hey, it's an honor just having you guys on stage as well. And the fact is that rock stars do get together way easier here. We don't have all the travel, we don't have all of that, and we can do 95% of all the stuff that we can do in real life. And I am looking forward to that extra 5% when we can go and do an event in real life together. But between now and then, we've got eXp World in Virbela. So thanks for being part of it, and thanks for jumping up here today.
Thanks for having us on. We'll jump off stage and let you carry on. Thank you, Glenn. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thank you. So obviously in many respects, eXp has been lucky, I talked about this idea of why have we, what was it that made us lucky? And I don't actually think it was luck. I think Randy Miles talked about when he was talking about the board, on the board, history repeats itself. And we don't know exactly how it's going to repeat itself, because if we did, then we'd all sort of take advantage of that, and then it wouldn't repeat itself. And that's sort of one of the ironies, is that history repeats itself. We just don't know in what way history will repeat itself each and every time. But but if we think about it, every 3 to 10 years, there is in fact something that happens, something that shocks the economy. It's been going on for a long time, and so we've all heard the phrase, "Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me." And I'm 53 now, which is I'm finally the average age of a realtor, which is kind of interesting. I think it's 53, 54 years old is the average age. But at 53 years old, I've seen a few things. I'm no longer a spring chicken, but I think one of the things is that you start to realize that history does repeat itself. Back in the late 70s, actually 1977, I remember my math teacher brought an Apple II computer to school, and that I fell in love with technology at that point in time. I might touch on that a little bit later, but shortly thereafter, my dad had sold a business up in Canada, and we moved to Oklahoma to get in the oil and gas business. And in 1980, oil cratered. It crashed. It went. People were predicting similar to remember back before the mortgage meltdown, predicting that prices were just continually going to go up. Well, people were predicting that oil was just going to continually go up in price, and unfortunately, my dad had put almost all of his money into oil and gas at the time, and had a really nice exit from his previous company. And 1980 marked a point in time where the economy totally shifted, and we had this savings and loans. We had oil going, basically dropping. Penn Square Bank went down and brought a whole bunch of other banks to their knees. And so that was in the 80s. In the 90s, there was also a small recession, not as big. But then we all remember in 2000, 2001, we had the dotcom collapse, followed by 9/11. And to some extent, none of these things could have been predicted by themselves, even though at the time there were people that predicted one or the other. But timing, nobody really sort of knows the timing of when any one of these things is going to potentially implode. What we do know is that things implode from time to time. So we had oil and gas, we had a recession, we had the dot-com collapse, and then of course in 2007 and 2009 was what has now become known as the Great Recession. And of course now we have the coronavirus 10 years later. So every 10 years approximately, there's something that happens in the economy. And for me, it's similar to the phrase you've heard, which is success leaves clues. History leaves clues. History, if you pay attention, you start to realize that if you simply go all in and spend all of the money that you have on growing whatever business you have, and you're doing it like everybody else, when something happens, similar to, again, talking about Randall Miles and restaurants, a lot of restaurants are getting clobbered at the moment. They probably will for a period of time because they were running very thin margins. Real estate brokerages ran very thin margins. And so, what do all these things have in common is that, there's some sort of systemic shift in the economy that ultimately, changes what happens. And of course, at the same time, actually, I've ended up messing up, not getting some of my slides.
I think Glenn Sanford just disappeared.
I think Glenn has left the building.
He was just so exciting that he just combusted in front of us. But he'll be back in a minute. That was
Is that his actual mic drop moment? Or are we just going to call it that?
I think that's what happens is he gets so excited, he just dissipates into the virtual air.
I love it.
I am back. So all day I've been doing so well, keeping things going, and all of a sudden, I got kicked out finally when it's my big presentation. So Murphy's Law had been holding its breath for me until this part of the presentation. So anyway, I'm back. So I'm not sure exactly where things got lost, but I'm going to go back a bit. And just talk about the fact that we coronavirus, what was going on in oil and gas, what happened in dotcom collapse, what happened with the housing crisis. These are things that continually happen. Is that there are systemic changes to the marketplace, and it is actually quite normal that these things happen, even though they're unpredictable. So at the same time, we also have really what was the internet. The internet started to kick off, and literally from 2002 to 2007, 2008, 2009, we went from dial-up to cable internet, and then in addition to that, at the same time, we're now at the point where we literally have LTE going on 5G and high-speed internet everywhere. And so the ability to build communities 100% online is no longer a pipe dream or something that's a future state. It's actually with us now. Now, at the same time, we've got a situation going on that certain industries are doing better than others. And so these are just three charts. One that really supports technology and remote organizations. And actually, ironically, the Nasdaq is up for the year. Hard to believe, but Nasdaq's up for the year. And had you been moving money from more traditional businesses to those types of businesses that actually support remote organizations and remote collaboration and remote community, you would have done well in making that move. So you've got remote organizations and companies that support remote organizations doing phenomenally well. So you got the Zooms and the DocuSigns and the Shopifys and the Netflix, and there's a whole bunch of them. Atlassian, which makes Trello, and you could, I've got a list of stocks that I currently have in my portfolio where I literally it was like shooting fish in a barrel. All I had to do was ask the question: do they support remote organizations? And I went and bought those stocks, and then I also at the same time said, what's going to be killed in the current pandemic, and it's transportation and commercial real estate are two of them. And so if you think about it, we have made a fundamental shift. And so there's a whole reorganization going on around in the economy, which is actually pretty. It's at some level, obviously, it's somewhat troubling because we don't fundamentally want things bad to happen to other people. I certainly don't, and no matter the competitive nature of business, and it is sometimes a contact sport, we all want what's best for other human beings, but we also are in a competitive marketplace, and we have to be prepared for whatever happens. And so, we're currently also, unfortunately, in a position where unemployment has went up dramatically. I think we're now at the highest unemployment post the Great Depression. But at the same time, you look at these companies that can operate without the physical infrastructure, and those companies are doing phenomenally well. So we're well positioned in a lot of respects as a company. And then you've got also people like Warren Buffett literally asking the question if people will return to offices. I saw another headline, I think over the weekend, and I didn't get into the slide deck, but it literally said that white collar workers, meaning those who are information economy oriented individuals, are effectively wanting to go to the office less because they're enjoying working from home. Now, working from home, on the other hand, has certain aspects that aren't so enjoyable. And so some of you may have heard of the thing called Zoom fatigue. And Zoom fatigue is, unfortunately, when you're trying to actually be alert and pay attention to people using your webcam, it's actually painful. It's actually one of the most painful exercises you could go through. And I'm sure almost everybody in this auditorium watching on the live stream has had to pay an inordinate amount of attention to a webcam while trying to also pay attention to the person that's talking. And it actually creates a lot of neurological challenges for you as a human being. That's why our avatar-based environment has been something that has enabled the growth of eXp in a way that no other technology could have allowed for us to expand as a real estate brokerage. So this idea that that a virtual world, and then at the same time you've got conferences after conference being canceled for the whole year. So Apple, I think, has now canceled everything for the rest of the year. Salesforce, you've got major employers basically saying to their employed workforce, saying there's no requirement for you to come back to the physical office until at least the end of the year. And so the future of teams, corporate offices, education, events in a post-COVID world is totally changed. And it's crazy because for us, we've been living and breathing this every day for the last 10 and a half years. Ever since October 6th, 2009, we've been operating at 100% virtual organization. And now the world is now trying to figure out what do we use, what do we cobble together, how do we work more collaboratively, and yet even the standard set of technologies don't work very well. One of the other things we've been hearing, and of course, when we think about the future, we think about the virtual world, but we've had professors from major universities that have moved entire lectures with their students into Verbella. One professor from the University of Texas in Austin came